really.
According to these new rules and procedures, yeah, you gotta call me Mr. Chairman.
Is that right?
Man.
It's gonna be some new rules. Where's Libby? Well, I heard from anybody.
I tried to call you today, I wasn't sure whether he was back or not.
I got strict orders from my doctor to rest.
Yeah, I'm a lot of places with it.
He's always got good stories.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because he's just working his cashier.
Can't complain.
So he's always got good.
Haven't had the same problems on my bike lately.
Takes you classes.
Right.
This hockey season's over in October.
Thank goodness.
It's,
She said you had to look out and get this teacher today. You actually checked her out at Walmart.
It's Bailey.
You checked her out.
Well, Bailey, you.
So when I talked to you last, Billy, you didn't really remember any
She's at Edwards now.
of the actual accident.
I
It
still
never
don't.
came back.
Never came back.
It probably won't.
The last steel shot I had in my head was realizing that I was gonna get hit hard.
I hope he was at home.
And then I was waking up in the hospital.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened between those two.
You don't remember
For 20 years.
riding over the ambulance, nothing,
Nothing.
nothing.
I remember getting hit.
It's a weird feeling, isn't it?
That's probably good. I mean, it's probably
A few
your,
minutes of your life.
She's right. I remember being 3 feet away and I was right between the headlights and I said, man, she's gonna.
This is gonna hurt.
it's gonna hurt.
It's gonna hurt.
But the helicopter ride, were you waiting for that?
Yeah, on and off. I mean, I just know I was strapped down to a piece of plywood. There were two EMTs that kept hanging their head over me trying to talk to me. I'm sure they were just trying to keep me awake. But they were trying to carry on a conversation. I couldn't hear a word they were saying.
Now they moved you over to something. Something, was it a heart?
Strapped down to it, like my head and my chest and my
Neither one of
waist.
those today. My doctor was probably frowning at me right now.
Little energy.
I need a
Hi, Libby.
Hey, how are y'all?
well, there's Libby.
I'm glad to see you up and
Well, I'm glad
moving.
to be here.
Billy said, where's Libby? And he said, I have not talked to her. And then he said, you know what? I've not talked to anybody.
A whole bunch of
I was
doctors.
rolling in late today.
Got a minute or two here.
One of these lovely monster coffees. I just need a little.
Everybody is suddenly interested in your drink.
I know, right? But it's amazing. I'll be running around the house 12 o'clock tonight, so.
Yeah, we'll all go home to bed. You, on the other hand.
I love caffeine.
Hey, Tag, grab a couple of those. Yes, sir.
Yeah, every now and then I have to have, I was drinking one a day, and my doctor got on me, so it's kind of like a
See what you
guilty,
do then.
just a guilty indulgence now, so every now and then I have to have one.
I sound so sexy saying so.
It tastes like coffee.
It tastes kind of more like a,
Anyway.
like a vanilla mocha or something to that effect, I mean, or a vanilla, latte, I
Maybe.
guess you would say. It's good. She's got a lot of
Anybody else
caffeine.
want a water?
And I wasn't thinking that when I walked in with it, my husband will probably watch this on TV, so I'm gonna get fussed at regardless when I get home.
So isn't that your third one?
No, when you're laying in bed tonight, wide awake too, it's kind of, told you so.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I guess we'll bring this meeting to order. Regular meeting of the Glasgow Electric Plant Board dated July 23rd, 2019 is now in order. First item on the agenda is consideration of rules of procedure document. In absence of any formal rules of procedure, but the repeal of the Robert's Rules of Order the last meeting, we now have a draft copy of the proposed rules and procedures for our meetings, so we're in compliance with the Little TVA Act.
Yeah, what you have in front of you, first of all, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'd just like to say that I'm not officially back at work. I'm here just kind of as a liaison between you guys and my great staff people that are gonna really carry the ball tonight, so, if I say anything crazy, it's because I'm not really here. But the stuff that you have there is, first of all, the generic document that you saw for the first time last month. And then I encourage you all to send me your ideas about customizing it. And I really didn't hear anything, so I just took my own shot at trying to make those represent the 35-year history of operating procedures that we used. So that's the generation that you have in front of you is generic document with some struck out and added language that I thought would bring it to where it reflects the way we've been operating. With some enhancement, well, a couple of enhancements that, I mean, we learned a couple of things from Robert's Rules of Order that might be useful, that we had never really officially committed to writing anywhere in the minutes. So that's what you see in front of you. It really doesn't represent any of your all's suggestions because I didn't get any. So.
I want to suspend this discussion just for a second. I don't know where my manners are. Billy, I just want to say we're glad nothing happened, you know, that was life-threatening and it's more serious than it was. It's good to have you back, and I'm glad to see you sitting here. So just wanted
Glad to be
to
here.
extend that to you. So, so we have an option. We can either accept the draft proposal the way that it is, or we can table this till people have adequate time to review. We have had several days to look over this thing through the board portal, but if you've not had an opportunity to really look at it and study it and give us any feedback, we may want to go ahead and table it, but I'll entertain a motion for either.
Let me just say that, I wasn't here last month, so I haven't even seen that, so I don't know.
Yeah, sure. You can,
You have an extra
We can-
copy?
yeah,
or-
yeah.
It was emailed, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's available on the portal when you get that email.
I didn't get an email, so I don't.
well, you can look at it. It's fine. Yeah, you can have this one. Take a look.
Why don't
Got
we
others.
just, let's make a motion then, just to table it till the next meeting. And that way Marlon and everybody has time to go over it sufficiently.
And if you have any other things you want to add, let me know.
Yeah, let's get some input on it. So there's been a motion to table till the next meeting. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling to the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Table till next meeting. Next item on the agenda is review and approve the minutes of the June 25th, 2019 meeting. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of the June 25th, 2019 minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Third item on the agenda is annual comparative review of the EPB metrics, so I'll turn it over to Billy Ray to give us the metrics.
And I'm going to turn it over to Melanie, who usually does this presentation anyway. This is a report that she puts together for us every year that is built upon a report that we get from TVA, where they send all of their distributors these metrics that they compare each distributor to similarly sized distributors and then to the whole group. And so Melanie takes this information, which we normally get in February or March, but it was late coming this year. Ernie, I'm not saying that just because you're here. I'm sure that's not one of your projects. But anyway, this is not purely the TVA stuff, but it's mainly the TVA stuff. And it's just something that the board has been interested in historically to see how we rank, how we stack up against our peers. So, you want me to drive? You just
Sure.
got to? Okay.
And in the past, I have done more information, and I decided it wasn't as pertinent. So, as I always say, if there's anything that you would like to see that is not included on here, please let me know, and we'll get it added for next time, or I can report on it next month. Okay, I'm ready. So what we're going to look at is 2018. Yes, we are at the end of 2019, so we are looking a year back. For those of you that were on the board last year, you got a lot of this information when we got our audit report. But if you weren't here, then we'll go over some of this. It's just sort of the overall summary of the financial results. Okay? So this, hopefully you can see it well enough to know what it is, but this just shows what we would call the net income by the service. You have electric, and then cable is the second group there, and then internet, and then just our the co-location center that we have.
Each one of those bars is a year, so you're seeing 4 years of history, and the green one on the right is Melanie's projection about where we're going to finish 2019, which will be a really good projection because we're at the end of 2019. So.
Right. The only thing that will change will be the electric. You see that looks nice and high there. That does not include an adjustment that we will get from the Kentucky retirement system on the unfunded liability.
So
there's a portion of it
down.
in there, but there's always a large adjustment.
Are we reserving for that, Melanie?
We put a portion of it in there, but of course I don't know what the total amount's going to be until they give us the reports at the end of. So they'll give us the reports at the end of this year for last year.
You just been estimating the best year you've got,
Correct.
I guess, right? Okay.
Yes.
Ready?
Uh-huh. This slide just gives you a look at what our budget was versus what the actual results were for each of the last 3 years. So you have 2016 and 17, and then 2018. And you can see 17 and 18 do not look favorable, and that is mainly because of that retirement system adjustment. And again, that is not, at least right now, it's not a cash expense, but it does have to be booked as an expense because it is a liability to us.
So you're talking about the unfunded liability portion of the pension expense?
Correct.
Okay.
They're making us book it as if
You owe it.
they
We
went,
owe.
as if the thing went belly up and they had the pro rata demand, a catch up from everybody.
Yeah, those are the new pension rules.
Yeah.
Okay, now this gets into the comparison. So like Billy was saying, it's called a muni co-op report. So it gives information of all of TVA's distributors, whether they're a co-op or they're a municipality. This here is going to give you information on the electric plant board and then similar distributors. And across the bottom there is who TVA has told us to compare ourselves to. And then one for all of their municipalities. These are just ratios that I have pulled out that you all, or the board in the past has requested. So again, if there's anything else that you want to look at, or if you don't want to see some of these, but the first one there is the cash ratio, and that is basically your liquidity. So how much your cash will cover your liabilities. So we're doing very well there. The net income ratio, that's your surplus or your deficit after your expenses. So in my opinion, for a nonprofit, the closer to zero you are, the better.
Right. And y'all see this right-hand column here? TVA is saying that they recommend that net income ratio be greater than 1.5%. And our similar distributors, as well as all TVA municipalities, comply with that. We don't. We're about half of that. And that is because, as Melanie just said, that has long been our philosophy, that we don't want to tie up, we don't want to have our rates high enough that we collect a large amount of cash to just sit on and take it out of the community's economy. So we differ with TVA and say, no, we don't want to have 1.5%. 0.73%, half of that suits us.
Now, I'm going to ask you may consider it to be a trick question, Melanie, but the cash ratio sitting at 111.92%, net income ratio at 0.73. You look at that and you think, okay, if we're only showing a 0.73 net income ratio, how do we have so much cash, available to pay off debts? Now, is that a result of managing cash excellently, or is that more reflective of managing liabilities?
It would
Better.
be cash, but we actually, of course, you probably remember Tag Moody's has always hit us with, you don't have enough cash, you don't
Right.
have enough cash. So in our rate structure change, we put, a surplus in there to try to help with that.
Okay.
Very small, but it has helped to bump that
Okay.
ratio up.
You also got to remember that our peers that are at 4.4 and 3% net income ratio are financing more and more of their activities with cash.
Yeah.
Because they've got it.
Yeah.
We're saying we'd rather be a pauper and finance our activities with debt.
No, that's managing the cash.
Right.
Yeah, the cash very
Yeah.
well. Okay. Sorry, Molly, go ahead.
No, you're fine. The next item there is revenue less power cost, so just as it says, it's the amount of funds that we have left after we pay TVA for our power bill for all of our other expenses. And that one it's hard to compare to all of the other TVA distributors because you have some that are really large and some that are really small.
Yeah.
So that far right column there, that's really just informational, I guess. We can't really compare, but looking at the similar ones, we're doing a little bit better than they are.
Right. And that's probably the more valuable comparison.
Mhm.
We can't compare to Memphis and Knoxville and NES.
The line losses, I'm sure you all know what that is. That's just the amount of energy that we are purchasing from TVA, but we are not billing our customers for. And we're right on, right in line with everybody else on that, 3.5%. The O&M per customer, that's where you're gonna see a big difference. I think last year, which is on the next slide, it was at 634. So we've only gone up $3 since last year, which is tremendous. But looking at us against the other distributors, it doesn't look so good if you look on paper.
Does that mean we have just aging infrastructure? There's just more of that has to occur in our system, or?
It means that we're investing
Spending.
more in not just upgrading aging infrastructure, but we're trying to upgrade it to be more resilient
Okay.
in an environment where the weather is more violent.
Okay.
So,
So we're trying to be
ahead of our-
proactive and get out
Yeah,
ahead of it.
and that's a decision. I mean, that decision manifests itself in these metrics that we use, SAIDI and SAFE, where we measure our average, the duration of an outage on our system and the average frequency. And ours is far lower than our peers, and that we're investing money to get that result.
Well, if I'd have seen that cash ratio real low and that O&M per customer where it is right now, I'd be a little concerned. But
Yeah.
considering the cash ratio is high and we still have maintaining a higher O&M per customer, it feels pretty good.
Yeah. And then the debt ratio is,
Debt ratio, right, is for every dollar of assets we have, it covers that much in debt. So we have 31% of our assets are covered with debt. And you can see the others are a lot lower.
yeah. And that's a philosophy that's driven by the board. I mean, for 35 years, the board's philosophy has been, let's be poor, finance our stuff with debt so that the people that enjoy it during the life of those assets pay for it, instead of paying cash for it, so that today's customers are buying a gift for tomorrow's customers. And that's changeable by the board at any time, but that's the momentum that we've had for several decades.
Do you have, let me ask you a question. Melanie, is there a metric in here for, say, miles of line per customer or anything like that?
It is in the report that we get from TVA, but I don't have anything in this presentation.
Well, and the reason I ask that, I think it would be interesting because if O&M's higher per customer,
line losses, Billy, from some of it, we could drop line loss through better insulating, that kind of thing.
Larger conductor.
And then it's also basically our footprint, right?
Well, I think TVA probably factors that in. Ernie, if you know, jump right in here. But
Okay.
when we're comparing to Albertville, Alabama, McMinnville, Tennessee, Muscle Shoals, Scottsboro, I'm going to guess they have similar
That's it.
miles of line.
Right, so we're looking 3 or 4 different things, and I don't know that I'm gonna be able to name them all off the top of my head, but one of them is miles of line, one of them is revenue, one of them is your mix between residential versus business and industry. So those kinds of factors are what go into when we say you're similar to Muscle Shoals, Alabama. It's some of those factors, but miles of line is one of them.
Do we have, was there customer mix in this? No?
And for those of y'all that don't know who Ernie is Ernie Peterson. Ernie is our TVA representative. Your official title is manager of TVA Kentucky, is that right? Okay, so I've known Ernie for a long time. We can believe what he says.
Yeah, but yeah, Jeff, so that middle column, similar distributors, is really the most useful comparison, because you get over here to the right, the miles of line that Nashville NES has got versus Glasgow, they're not even in the same universe. But losses is an interesting topic. It used to be a rather simplistic thing that we thought we'll keep losses lower by putting larger conductor all the time, and it was really based on anticipated growth. Today in Glasgow, we see our losses climbing because, just like costs, most of the losses in the substations, and we have many more substations than I'll bet Albertville or McMinnville or Muscle Shoals have, and the reason is, when we had a lot of industry, we built substations for them. And now that those industries are, to a large extent, gone, we have to maintain those substations, and they have fixed losses. So you all have seen me use this graphic many times about how our sales are declining. So in a mathematical happenstance, declining sales make our losses go up because our losses are fixed by the substation transformers, and our sales going down makes that ratio a tougher nut to crack. So it can look like our losses are getting out of control, but it's just math. It's just the way it is in a system that is declining in sales.
And if I may, Billy, I get to work around on a lot of different LPC systems, and they all have different attributes and all of that, of course. What stands out about Glasgow's is the redundancy and the ability to feed from different directions, along with just the well thought out design that goes into all of that. So that costs more money, and that is a local control decision. We don't try to tell folks how much they need to spend on per mile of line or whatever. That's a local control decision. How much do you want to work on your reliability, your resilience, versus not? And I think that shows in some of those numbers as well.
Back to you, Melanie.
This is just the same information just from 2017, so you're not going to see a big change in those numbers from year to year. And then this, I know you all are having a hard time seeing it, but this is based on Moody's standards, and you all probably remember from just a couple months ago when we issued bonds, we have to go through a bond rating agency, and that is Moody's. They always give us,
Hey, look at that.
certain markers that they want us to hit. Why do we care about that? Because they'll give us a higher rating, which will give us better interest rates, which will keep our electric rates lower. The first one is customer growth. They would like to see a substantial increase year over year. Well, that's just not possible. I mean, we can't create growth ourselves. We can't, go out here and build apartment buildings and pull people in. So that's something that we can't really control. The next one is the amount of revenue the percentage of our revenue that's from industrial customers. And ours has been pretty high in the past. Of course, we do have a couple of industrial customers that have significantly reduced their usage. So for 2019, that number is likely to go down.
And it used to be 75%.
And then the last one there is days cash on hand, which is just, if we had to close the doors today, how long can we pay our expenses? We hit that mark this year. So that is something that has been on there year after year after year. So we can finally check that one off. We've made it to the point they want us to, which is part of TAG where we have increased that cash for this reason.
And now they'll probably move the finish line next time.
I'll just,
And the increase on the top line, that's revenue, not load, true? I mean, not KWH.
Yeah, they can't be KWH because that'd be a negative, right? Okay, I zoomed it in, now how do I get out? Okay.
So let me ask you a question. I'm sorry, Ernie. We talked about Glasgow, we've got a pretty steady decline for the last 10 years, starting in 2008. My understanding, TBA themselves had the first decline. Was it fiscal year 18? Is that right?
We've had a decline in 18, true.
Okay.
And what has happened is that's level. It used to be a 3% increase every year. You could just about write it down.
And y'all did write it down.
In fact, we did. Yeah. So you just planned on it. And then since about 08, that has leveled out to where it's nowhere near 3%. And now it's down. It's been fluctuating staying under 1% for some time now. And then actually a small decrease this time. And that's even with, we've got Nashville growing like crazy. We've got Middle Tennessee area. There are pockets where there's some real growth. But that's offset by areas that are losing load.
Is industrial load growing across, or is it, you said there's some, it's slowing down or some contraction. Is that, is it an even mix of residential and industrial load? Is it industrial load? What do you see?
So the industrial load is actually got a little growth to it right now. I'm talking in the last 12 months.
Okay.
We're seeing a little bit of an uptick there. I won't go down that rabbit trail, but it's an interesting story on where that is, and it's Bitcoin and data centers and some things like that. Some really big electrical loads that are showing up as industrial load. But in general, industrial loads got a little growth. The residential, just because of energy efficiency standards and the way those work, we've seen some decline there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay, so the next item is a large material bid. This is for a project that we've been doing the design on for probably a year and a half. It's also a project that we opened bids on for material a year or so ago, and they were so high we rejected them all. This is a return to this work that we need to do to make our transmission assets more resilient. A lot of poles, a lot of wood poles to be replaced with steel poles, hundreds of individual pieces of hardware. And so what we did was we did the whole package of all the laundry list of material that we needed. And then we had each of these companies bid each item, or each item that they provided. And then we chose among the different companies the ones that they were low on, and these numbers here represent the volume of the $236,000 worth of hardware that we recommend that we buy from 5 different distributors because they were the lowest on these individual items. We're lucky because often these distributors bid it in such a way that they say, if I don't get it all, you don't get the really good prices that I've given you. But they did not put that restriction. So my recommendation to you is that you allow us to purchase $35,000 worth from Power Supply Company, $17,000 from Brownstown, all the way down through there, to produce about $250,000 hardware purchase, and we'll get all that stuff headed in here. Then in whatever number of months it takes to get it all in here, we will also do a labor bid to install all this stuff. And historically, labor is about equal to material. So it's a $500,000 project, which is what Melanie estimated in the last debt issuance that we did. So we got a $500,000 earmarked, and it looks like that should cover the project that we want to do to increase our reliability.
Refresh me, where is this?
Well, it's all over. We have a transmission grid that runs all the way from kind of Red Cross out there, or Becton, because we sold part of that to Warner Electric, and then all the way across our system to East Kentucky on the other side, and then it loops around and feeds all of our substations. So where it is somewhere along that 50-plus miles of transmission facilities that we've got, where just places where we found bad poles, places where we found poor design that would result in us facing an impossibility to get a truck in there in certain weather. So we're designing around, trying to move it closer to roadways, all that kind of stuff.
Any of this what we saw pictures of earlier where we had outages and just could not?
No, most of those have been 12 kV distribution stuff. This is primarily transmission stuff here, 69 kV stuff. I mean, I've got, actually, if y'all want to drill down to the, get in the weeds on this, I can show you a spreadsheet that has all the nuts and bolts and doodads that we need to build all that stuff. It's broken down into 3 areas, area A, B, and C. So that's how we determine the recommendation that I have on the summary slide of who's the lowest on all enough stuff that we would make these purchases. So what I need is a motion to authorize me to cut these POs.
We'll get a motion to approve the bid for the transmission pole replacement project. Entertain a motion to accept the bid from the 5 distributors.
Make that motion.
Got a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor of accepting the bids from the 5 suppliers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, like sign.
Sorry, I can't connect to the Wi-Fi network.
Oh, Alexa.
You won't select it.
Yeah. Motion passes.
She voted?
She didn't like it.
Okay, next we have kind of a sack full of cable TV items, and luckily our cable TV manager, Eddie Russell, is here, and he's going to carry the ball on this. So, Eddie, if you want me to drive, I'll do the
Yeah,
drive.
go ahead. The first, this is a little bit out of the agenda from the program committee a few weeks ago, but the ACC network agreement is finally coming in, and we buy most of our programming through NCTC, which is a co-op of about 300 smaller systems like ourselves, and they negotiate with the bigger programmers to get the best offering. So this is something that's been in the works from ESPN since early January. They've been promoting it hot and heavy, and it doesn't launch until August the 22nd. And so we finally got our terms this week. With the latest rate increase that we did back in July 1st, this would cover adding this on our basic tier. Basically covers all of the ACC network, which we're a part of because of the University of Louisville.
If I remember correctly, we anticipated this at the last time we reviewed rates, and I think we baked that into that current rate structure, correct? So there's not going to be an increase in the rates moving forward after this is done.
We threw $2 at it, and so we were pretty much spot on.
So it's an opt-out, it's automatic opt-in, but if you choose, you opt out,
I don't
correct?
think it's
Is that
automatic
right?
opt-in.
This one's actually, our agreement with ESPN Disney doesn't expire until 2021. They originally wanted to make this mandatory, but with a co-op, they had a survey with all the 300 systems, and about 50-50 wanted it, 50% didn't want it. So they made it optional. We have the option to add it or not add it. I can guarantee you come 2021, it'll be mandatory.
Yeah.
And in Glasgow, the programming committee, remember what you're doing here is just trying to decide whether to ratify their recommendation to you. Their recommendation is because they feel like in Glasgow, we really don't have an option. We added the SEC network, and everybody knows that U of L is in the ACC now, and if I would imagine all of you have probably gotten phone calls from people that are ACC fans that would point out that we spent the money to add the SEC and they hate the SEC, so it's time to add the ACC. So the programming committee deliberated on this and decided to recommend to you all that we add it. Of course, we already funded it, so.
Motion to accept as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor of opting into the ACC network subscriber?
Didn't think you'd say that, did you?
Yeah, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
Which it looks nice and insignificant there, but we got 6,000 subscribers, so that's $12,000 a month more that leaves this community because somebody likes to watch somebody with a stick and a ball.
My old roommate and good friend Brandon Winiger will be pleased.
Well, good.
He can now watch U of L.
Well, I can tell you that this board member is very pleased that we can now watch U of L.
There was another one that was I'm not naming any names. Next up on this is the A&E networks, which are A&E and History and Lifetime. And the NCTC did an agreement with them back 1st of July. It was an automatic renewal on the 15th of July. It only went up about 3 cents per service for each year. So they felt that was a strong enough agreement to go ahead and make it evergreen unless you wanted to opt out. And the program committee met on the 9th before this date, and they voted to go ahead and opt in. So this is kind of ratifying what they've already approved, and that date's passed.
Oh, wait a minute.
So we need a motion on it too, don't we?
Yeah, I think you ought to do each one of them individually.
Yeah.
Motion.
Got a motion, have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Then there's Viacom.
Viacom is all of the MTV networks. You got VH1 and BET and CMT and all those. 5 years ago, they had strung us up pretty good on 2014 and raised rates quite a bit. A lot of systems, especially out west, ended up dropping Viacom. And this time around, I think NCTC thinks they're trying to buy back systems because they've actually dropped their rates. First time a large programmer like this that we've seen come back with a lower rate than what we're paying out for. So you see in the first year, we dropped nearly $1.30, and then the second year it's nearly $2 less than what we're paying now. even at the end of this contract, we are still paying nearly $1 less than what we're paying now for all of these. And that's on the basic tier. You can see that the channels that are on the digital or the premium tier are nearly a $2 drop.
So we won't start seeing these decreases till October 1 of 2020, right?
No, we'll see them October 1 of this year.
This year?
Yes.
Okay. So
And we
the
actually-
the 2020 rate is the one that starts October 1 then?
Yes.
Great, okay. Got it.
Okay.
So this will lean against whatever rate change we need to do in 2020 and
Yeah.
help it. So
Right.
this has never happened before.
I know.
And Eddie, all of us said, that's got to be wrong, send it back to them. And,
Yeah.
We're signing it quick.
So this is just informational, right? Or they need to act on this?
They need to act on it because
Okay.
we have we have to opt in by
It's
this.
an opt-in too?
Yeah, by September 30th. If we opt in by September 15th, there's actually a rebate that NCTC will give us. And it's, I can't give you an amount on that because it depends on how many systems opt in by that date and they spread it across to everyone, so.
So we need a motion to accept the program and committee's recommendation on Viacom. That's what we need.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
And I think the last thing here, Fox Cable Networks is up for agreement renewal at the end of this year. And this PCM is just a pre-commitment module that NCTC likes systems to sign up for. Kind of gives them more strength to go back to Fox and say, hey, I've got this many systems that signed up, so let me do our negotiating for them. So that's really what this is.
It's also a promise on our behalf
Yeah,
that
it is.
we won't negotiate directly with Fox, that we'll stick with the group.
Right.
So whatever they negotiate, we'll either take, or we have a brief 5 or 10 day window when they announce what they got, that we could say, no, thanks, we're not going to do that. But historically, we've let them do it because they're professionals, get the best deal, get a lot better deal than we can get by ourselves.
And the Fox Cable Networks now are only Fox News business and their Sports 1 and Sports 2 channels. They actually sold off FX, FXX, a couple others to Disney back in April of this year.
So we just need you all to agree with the programming committee that asked us to go ahead and sign this PCM agreement to become part of the larger group.
So we need a motion to accept the recommendation of the programming committee to sign the PCM document for Fox Cable Networks.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Okay, I don't know whether to speak on this or, I mean, I guess I can kick it off. Obviously, I had a serious accident on July the 10th, and there are a lot of people, I think a few people, thought about, well, what if he doesn't come out of this, or what if he's in the hospital incapacitated, who would execute documents and approve purchase orders and stuff like that. So I think probably asked Ronnie.
We did,
Ronnie
yeah.
to
Kind of give some guidance on what we need to do and how that needs to be done.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Jeff and I did that. I haven't seen, I guess, the duties of all the officers here. I don't know if there even is such a document for each position, like the chairman's duties and Melanie's duties and the others as far as their job description. You do have to worry about things needing to get done, and we talked about possibly having 2 people authorized in the event Billy Ray would be absent for whatever reason, that something immediately had to be signed or some decision had to be made, such as a time frame, that if we don't do it today, we're going to lose out on something. Decisions that generally are made by the superintendent. So I think, not knowing Billy's condition at the time, there was some concerns. Fortunately, nothing came up that had to be resolved or decided, but you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So until, in an event something like that happened, I think you do need to have something in place temporarily until other more permanent decisions could be made. So if you make a motion of some kind, I would suggest, do it generically, so it's not like, Billy Ray's incapacitated, we want to put Melanie, because in the event that Melanie might not be here to be the one to be appointed. So I think if I don't know everybody's title other than Billy Ray's the superintendent, so in the event the superintendent's not able to execute his duties, I think you got to have somebody, who's going to run the ship until, you can get back in place.
So if the superintendent was unavailable, CFO, would you use generic titles? That's what you're saying?
I'm saying you use generics, and then you don't have to worry about,
Okay.
who's in that position at the time.
Well, there's kind of I'm not a lawyer, but I have worked with Jeff Herbert for 35 years, and I think, Ronnie, you may have missed something, that it's not the job, I don't think this board can enact something that is at cross purposes to the Little TVA Act. The Little TVA Act is very clear that the superintendent is the only one that can execute contracts and what have you.
manages.
So it would, instead of monkeying with the job descriptions, my layperson opinion would be that maybe they should, in an event like that they should have a special meeting and appoint an acting superintendent to stay in compliance with the Little TVA Act. Because the Little TVA Act can't be altered by this board making a motion that, well, we say Melanie can also sign purchase orders, because that's not,
We can't go contrary to
you
state.
can't go contrary to state law.
So can we
The
appoint-
statute does says the superintendent is the manages the organization, so.
Can a motion that the CFO functions as the acting superintendent? Will that-
Yeah, I don't know if you can make I'm not, again, lay opinion, I don't know if you can make a sweeping motion now or not, but at least in the event of such a situation, you might want to get together either at a regular meeting or a special meeting and say, okay, Joe Smith is the acting superintendent, and that way, everything that person does is in compliance with the Little TVA Act.
Yeah, I mean, you may need that special, as Bill said, the special meeting. I'm sure that could be called quickly in the event, such as Billy Ray's accident, but if you need something, it's just, the only problem I can see is, if he's got something on his table, and nobody really knows, hey, I got to decide this, my plan is to decide this tomorrow, something happens to him today, nobody might not know that needed to be addressed yesterday.
So we can't really bring somebody in as his proxy. What we have to do in order to be in compliance with state laws, we actually have to name
An interim superintendent,
An interim
possibly.
superintendent, right?
That's an opinion from a layperson.
Yeah.
Well, but, I think you're right.
You could name that if the superintendent is incapacitated, the CFO
Right.
assumes those duties.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't know if you can do it now for then.
As the acting, you can authorize it anytime you
I
want.
mean, I don't know why you couldn't do it, but I don't know what the difference would be as far as whether it's now or then, I mean, if you need somebody.
Well, we know.
You have to make the decision, I guess, at what point is
Yeah.
the superintendent incapacitated so that we know,
Well, as you mentioned, there's going to be a few things that you'll be that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what, the idea was that if we can get something in place so that we can handle anything that comes up during those
Yeah.
short absences.
Well, and we don't know exactly what we're gonna get into down the road. I mean, we gotta weigh, I think we've gotta weigh the benefits of, and the detriments of going ahead and naming somebody today against maybe some of the benefits of looking at the situation when it actually happens, because the person that you may name today, and then you know how these things happen, they get stuffed into the closet. Years down the road, we've got this rule in place, the CFOs, and it may not be somebody
And nobody even remembers it.
that we
Right.
necessarily want to be in charge at that point. So
Right.
this may have to be something we take in a, kind of a case by case, and we certainly hope.
To be reviewed yearly or something like that.
I would like
On a
to say,
permanent
though,
motion.
while Billy was unable to do, some of his duties, such as purchase orders that had to be done, we did go ahead and take care of those. I approved those, so something needs to be done, I guess, retroactively.
Yeah, maybe some kind of a sweeping motion that approves those actions that have already been taken.
You can make a simple motion that the CFO
I think so.
is the acting superintendent when the superintendent is incapacitated. Comes back, he's personally, and you could do that. And if it were a problem down the road, the board could have a special session immediately and change
Remove that
it.
power at that point.
Yes.
Well, I say, how about to add in that motion to review annually,
Yeah.
which isn't gonna
I like
take
that.
15 seconds to
Annually,
just
yeah.
look, is this to who, and have it brought up every year
Yeah.
on an annual basis, and if we want to change it at that time. So I will make that motion that in the event of Billy's absence, the CFO steps in and assumes the responsibilities of the superintendent. This
Is the acting
as
superintendent.
the acting superintendent, and this to be reviewed annually by the board.
Yeah, I think if you call him the acting superintendent, because when you look at KRS 96-780, it sort of spells out superintendent's job, one of which is to let all contracts subject to approval of the board, but without such approval, obligate the board on purchase orders and so forth up to certain amounts. And as Melanie said, she signs some things, but she's not the superintendent that really
Right.
ought to be documented signing those things. So you could name her at least in the interim, knowing that we still may have a special called meeting because it may be we need to get somebody
Right.
else in there
Yeah.
to take care of it. But you're talking about just a very short temporary
Right.
fix, regardless of how long the superintendent may be incapacitated, just something to take
You're
care
only,
of.
it'd only have to be done until the next board meeting anyway,
Yeah.
when we would be formally together to.
So we got a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Wait a second. Any discussion, any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Since I'm in that position. So, who would decide that Billy's unable to perform his duties? I mean, would the board do that and contact me?
Yeah, I think we
or-
have to relieve him of his, if something did happen, have to relieve him of his duties at that point, and then you
Okay.
would, you're gonna be his proxy naturally in the case of, that he is incapacitated, but somebody has to make the determination he's incapacitated.
Right.
So that would require probably the governing body to make that decision.
I'll check into something because I just thought, and I know that was something that hadn't been done before, but, Bill Ray has to have a bond, he had a bond, right? You had to execute a bond. So all of a sudden you got an acting superintendent interim superintendent that doesn't have a bond. So, I don't want to get into, because the statute's talking about how he's supposed to be bonded.
Well, I went for 34 years without
Yeah,
having.
I know you didn't, but I just, we're on the
I
compliance
don't know, I
statute,
guess,
so
I
that's
guess
what I
we could
want to
check
do.
with the insurance company and see if it's transferable for a situation like that. Surely it would be.
I don't know if anybody's going to complain about that, They went for 34 years and nobody complained,
Yeah.
so, but,
Who's going to cite him?
Yeah, it's all good till it's not all good.
yeah, we're worried about complying with the Little TV Act, so
Yeah.
that's what it says do.
Right.
So how about this? So how about we, since we need to do something to take care of the retroactive aspect of it, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the floor. And then maybe next month you can give us a little better direction on what we would need to do more long-term.
That's fine.
Okay.
So just to be clear, what has to happen to transfer that? What's the mechanism for transferring the authority? I mean, if you're out 2 days, does that mean?
That's what you got to decide.
Yeah, how do we do that? Does that require?
It's going to require a special call meeting on our part. And we're going to have to make the determination.
Well, you don't want to do a special call meeting to.
Not
if he's
every time.
that's a little cumbersome.
Well, I'm
if
not
it's
sure he's on
vacation.
vacation or so, yeah, that's not what we're talking about.
No,
We got the technology where I can approve purchase orders where, as long as I've got internet access, so. But it would just have to be a situation like on July the 11th, I'm unconscious, that would have been a good time for her to become acting superintendent. And she
Okay,
needed
I'm not
That's-
sure that really requires a decision.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be situations where he's just unavailable, because
Yeah,
technology
unavailable is
today,
not-
he's available pretty much all the
He's
time.
Yeah,
incapacitated.
incapacitated, not
That's fine, that's
unavailable,
fine.
yeah,
We just didn't want it to be cumbersome to the point
Yeah.
where we couldn't, we had to have a meeting every time.
Yeah,
right.
you wouldn't want to have to do that.
No.
It ought to be like the president and vice president, you know. Well, they do the deal where if somebody's going to be under anesthesia, they do a temporary.
Tag, you have to start carrying the nuclear codes.
Yeah, the football.
Carry the football.
Football.
So no amendments to the original motion. We still got a motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Okay, I'm gonna, with the help of my team, gonna go through the normal reports. In a couple of minutes, I'll show you the quick discussion about the June review. We'll talk about what we think is the finalization of the Glasgow Data Times complaint. Training was completed. Windstream bankruptcy, Melanie might speak a little bit on that. And then Ernie's mainly here to talk about this situation that was brought up last meeting or 2 meetings ago about the Green Power Providers Program and how to provide some more pleasing solution for the developers that are getting paid based on what our current kilowatt hour rate is. So I can tell you that the fuel cost adjustment for August the 1st is going to go down to 1.673 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's a small decrease, so that's always welcome. In June, we call all 4 days that are allowed us predicting peaks. Unfortunately, the peak actually occurred on the 5th. It's a day that we didn't call because it was June. And you got to figure that the last of June is going to be hotter than the 1st of June. But Mother Nature didn't see it that way. So we had a miss that cost us about $10,000, the delta between what TVA charged us and what we collected from customers. So that brings us to this column over here. This is the normal coincident peak demand fund balance, where we're collecting a little extra to pay for our misses. So halfway through, let's see, now this goes through June. So halfway through this year, we collected $49,000, but we paid out $65,000. So we're about $16,000 behind. And for through June, that doesn't look bad. So that probably we're probably on track to have it net out at 0 for the year, which is where we want it to be. So, okay, the next item is the training that I missed, but all of you all except DT went to. I understand it was good. I've watched some of it on video, and I think it was good. I don't know if anybody else, we're going to consider that a done deal now. And then Melanie, you want to talk a little bit about the bankruptcy situation?
Sure. We still, of course, haven't heard anything from Windstream. We did decide to go ahead and pay what we owe them. We didn't want to hold that, and then they could use that and turn, our circuits off, and then we would be in the world of hurt. So we did that. I think we had talked about that last month a little bit at the board meeting, but since then, I have filed a proof of claim with the bankruptcy court, and also we did have a surety bond on file, so I've filed a claim against it as well. Haven't heard anything back yet, but it was just due last Monday, so I'm sure it'll be a little while.
What was the face amount of the surety bond?
$10,000.
Unfortunately, not equal to what they owe. Yeah.
Is that something Scott, did he look at that for you?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, Ernie, it's pretty much your turn up at bat. Ernie Peterson with TVA is going to talk to you about this matter that we've been on and off talking with TVA about for a number of years, and your all's request that I refresh that discussion has caused a lot of, I'm sure Ernie, you spent hours and hours on conference calls about that, so take it away.
Yeah, it has been interesting, no doubt, over the last, almost 2.5 years now. We've been kind of working with this issue. Before I jump right into that subject, I will just know that in front of you, you've got a couple of pieces of information. I'm not going to try to go through some of that today. I would offer to come back and go through any of that you're interested in once you've had a look at it sometime later. But what I'm here to talk about today is the Green Power Providers Program. You know that TVA was funded on renewable energy. It was managing the river system. The Tennessee River System was a major part of setting up TVA back in 1933. And ever since that time, we've been interested in what we can do to help the environment and manage river system and generate electricity with renewable sources. We like sources that don't have a fuel cost. Solar is one of those that it doesn't cost anything for the fuel, so that's a positive side of solar. There are challenges that go with that, of course. There is the cost of the panels themselves, and then there's the management in that you take the energy, whether you want it or not, when the sun's shining, and then you don't get to control that without a battery set up or something with that. You don't get to pick when you get it or how you manage that, like you do with a dam on a river. You can control, to some extent, control how much water is flowing and take the energy when you need it and leave it there when you don't, kind of thing. So, but I say all that to say solar is a program that we're very interested in, always have been. It was about 18 years ago, I believe, that we started the Generation Partners Program, and that's where we actually pay. If somebody puts in a solar panel, then we'll buy the output of that solar panel, and that's what this program is all about. We've got some other programs on how to manage solar renewable energy credits and things like that, but this is actually purchasing energy out of small non-utility scale solar panels. That's what this program is. So 18 years ago when we set this up, well, let me say it this way. For the first 16 years of this program, the way we purchased that energy was we figured out what those customers that put that solar panel up, what they were paying for their energy, what they were paying, in y'all's case, Glasgow Electric Plant Board, for their energy, and we reimbursed them for what they were paying for their energy, plus a premium. That premium was as much as 20 cents a kWh back in the very early parts of the program. That premium has come down over the years to zero premium, which means you were getting paid for the energy that you generated. You were getting paid exactly what you paid for your electricity. All right, so it was that's how it was priced. The reason that has come down over the years, certainly the cost of solar panels and the technology and all of that has gotten a lot better, and the cost for solar has come down. But the real reason that the credits that we pay has come down is, I'm going to call it a change in philosophy. We had some new leadership that saw this program differently, that saw this program as a, I'm going to say this and then I'll try to define it and explain it. A subsidy for those that can afford solar panels. And what I mean by that is if we're paying more for the energy out of those solar panels than what it cost us to generate the energy ourselves, then it's costing us more for that energy. And the people that own those solar panels are getting the benefit of that. And that makes it a good deal for them. They're getting paid a very good price for that energy. But our money only comes from one place, and that's from all the ratepayers, right? That's where that comes from. So if we're paying too much, more than we have to, for this energy, then that can only mean we're collecting up the difference from the others. So that would be those that chose not to be in the program, for whatever their reason might be. So with that as the philosophy, that credit has come down over time, working its way to an avoided cost mechanism. So we know what it's going to cost us to produce the energy today. Given an hour, we know what that's going to cost. So if somebody puts a solar panel up and they generate that energy, so we don't have to generate it, whatever that cost is, that avoided cost, that's what that energy is worth out of that solar panel. So we've been working our way on a slow, steady pace from retail rates plus 20 cents almost. We've worked our way over the last 8 or 9 years down to where it was just retail rate with no premium on top of that. And then for the last 2 years, we changed it again. And that change, we said, okay, let's not price it energy rate plus something. Let's just say what the rate is. Let's just set a flat rate. And that flat rate for the last 2 years has been 9 cents for really small well, small is a relative term, but 10 kW or less solar panels get paid 9 cents. If you signed up today for this program, you get 9 cents on a 10 kW or less. 10 kW to 50 kW, then you would get 7.5 cents a kWh. Now, if you're over 50 kW, that's a totally different program. It's not this program, and that program is more of the avoided cost, and that's about 3.5 cents if you're over. So that is a little. One other major part that's important here is when you sign up for this program, we're committing to pay you that rate for 20 years. Or yes, we're paying you the retail rate that you pay for energy for 20 years. The premium that goes on top of that for those that got a premium, that lasts 10 of those 20 years, then it goes away. That's what the contract said. So now let me zoom in to Glasgow. That's sort of the overall program. Glasgow, y'all check me on this, but I believe it's 16 GPP customers. Sounds about right. So you've got 16 customers that are in this program. They've signed up over the last, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years. I've got that here somewhere. But at different times, different ones have signed up. Some of them signed up early on, and they got retail rate plus 12 cents. That's a pretty nice deal. If you can get it, that's a nice deal. Yeah. Some of them signed up a little later and got something less. The most recent signed up and got 2 cents premium. All right. Since that time, it went down to 0 cents premium. So you get the retail rate and no premium. And you haven't had anybody sign up in the last 2 years, which is this flat rate premium that I was talking about. But whatever they signed up for, when they signed up for it, it was a 20-year deal. 10 years you get retail rate plus premium, and then 10 years you just get the retail rate. All right.
And it was in black and white. Nothing hidden.
Right.
So right there,
Right.
right above where you sign.
It says we're going to pay you this much for the energy that you buy. And it's going to offset what you're paying for your energy. All right, so that's kind of where we find ourselves today. Now, pricing, I don't have to tell this group that pricing structure in the electric utility market is changing everywhere. There is significant changes going on across the nation to recognizing that there is a lot of fixed cost that's being recovered in variable pricing schemes. So, as this group knows better than most, you've got a rate today that collects your fixed cost in a customer charge, and then your variable cost is in the energy charge. And when y'all made this change, you lowered your energy charge considerably when you made the change, what's that been, 2 or 3 years ago. So we pay on the energy, and your energy charge lowered. A lot of other folks across the valley and the nation are doing a similar thing. Not exactly what y'all did by any means, but it is a similar thing in that they are raising their customer charge and they're lowering their energy charge. The contract and the way this program is set up is we pay the credit based on what the energy charge is. Your energy charge went down, so the credit went down. And that kind of gets to the issue that we've been kicking around for so long. Sorry it took me so long to get to that, but that's I wanted to be sure we were all together there. So now we're at this issue where we're doing exactly what the contract says, and that is we're paying based on what your energy charge is. So with that, we feel like we're still doing a fair deal in that we're working our way towards that rate, which is avoided cost. And think like 3 cents is avoided cost. That's what those other programs are that are bigger than 50 kW outside of this program. So 3 cents, we're working our way towards that to get out of this subsidization going on between those that choose to get in the solar panels and buy those and put them on their, and those that don't. We don't want any cross subsidization going on there. So that's kind of where we're at. Feel like we're in a good spot. But because this board has some concerns for its customers, as y'all do, in regards to how this has played out for those 16 customers, and because Billy's beat on us for a while on this, we feel like what can we do? How can we help? We want to support the community. We want to do what's right. So I've got 3 options here to propose. And I'm just going to tell you up front, none of them are perfect. None of them are the silver bullet, and it's not going to just fix everything. But it's what we can do. So option number 1, if you call it an option, is stay where you are. For those 16 customers, they can stay where they're at. And in general, probably the reason that they're on the rate they're on, because at least 9 of these could choose a different rate, could choose the older structure. But they didn't, and they haven't in 3 years or whatever, because they're saving money on the rate they're on. They are saving money, and that's why they wouldn't want to go to the other rate. So they're saving money because of the rate change. They are getting a less credit because of the rate change. But that's a choice, that's a business choice they can make, and we can run numbers and see how that plays out for all 16. So one option is stay where they're at. Another option, for those that are on a residential rate schedule, which there's only one in this list, it's on residential, or on GSA 1, so that's 50 kW load or less. That group has an option to go to the old rate structure. Remember, you've got this older rate structure deal, we call it TGSA.
Locally, it's called the fixed rate.
Fixed rate, okay. So they had the option to go there, and if they choose to go there, then we'll pay them fixed rate. If they're paying that rate for that energy, then we're going to credit them that rate for their energy. So that's option 2. If they choose to go to that route, then they can. 9 of the 16 have that option if they want to. There are a few that are TGSA 2. They're greater than 50 kW. And those don't have an option to go to the old, to the fixed rate. So that gets me to the third option. And the third option is they can go to the program that we have today. Now, the program we have today, as I mentioned earlier, is a flat rate. It's 7.5 cents or 9 cents, depending on the size of the panel. But there is an advantage to doing this in that we would allow them to start their 20-year contract all over again. So if they're 5 years into their 20-year contract today, and remember the premium goes away after 10 years, so that's going to go away in 5 years, and then they get retail for the other 10. Well, if they choose this option, they're going to get what we pay today, the 7.5 and the 9, not what they signed up for back then, but they're going to get it for a full 20 years.
It's going to be locked in.
Locked in for 20 years.
And you said it's the flat rate, the 7.5 to 9, depending on the size of the panel or depending on the size of the system?
It's the panel.
The panel.
It is the panel.
So if it's a 240 watt panel or a 330 watt panel, it depends, it's because you're getting higher efficiency.
He's talking about the aggregate of he means the installation.
The system size.
Yeah, I thought it was, output in it.
The output of the panel.
Up to 50 kW.
Of the aggregated.
The what?
Well, I want to make sure it's not the type of panels we're talking about.
No, but
The
it's
size
It's
of the
all
actual
about
panel.
how much those panels are putting on the system.
50 kW
Gotcha.
is 7.5.
That's right, 7.5.
Now, does that
There's a
new,
couple of little details there. Let me just read this so I say it right. It's 7.5 cents if you're greater than 10 kW output of those panels. Or if your load is greater than 50 kW, it's going to be 7.5 cents. All right? It's 9 cents if your output of the panel is 10 kW or less, and your load is 50 kW or less.
That's most commercial. Small commercial.
Small
commercial. Right.
most of what you're talking about, those 10 to 50.
Some of them, yeah.
Right. Most of them.
Most of them, yeah.
If you look at the list, it is about half and half.
Yeah.
About half and half. We did a quick analysis. If every one of the 16 chose this new deal, if you will, the flat rate, the 7.5, 9 cent option, and stretched it out for the full 20 years, then we would end up paying about $120,000 more for that energy than we are as they sit today.
And what we're trying to do, and what you all are trying to do too, is trying to avoid that calculation on that peak time charge. I mean, I guess if we're looking at retail, that would be considered retail, the peak charge, because that's what it's been passed through the year,
We're
right?
just paying based on energy.
Yeah.
We're not paying anything based on
demand.
peak and demand.
Okay,
They're blind to that.
yeah, okay.
And that's
Okay.
unfortunate.
But that's
Which-
where the rub is, right?
Yeah, and that was kind of my question, is if TVA is using this avoidance concept, how come they wouldn't pay the retail rate on the power consumption and what they produced that TVA avoided having to produce? How come that wasn't an attractive way to, the KW output of those panels during the city peak, that then TVA and kind of did not have to produce? How
So
come
that means those other generating
Yeah, how come
methods
that
don't
wouldn't
have
be,
to ramp
that's what I
up and there's
kept-
not as much there.
Am I missing something?
Well, when he
I
says
probably-
avoiding
let me-
cost, he's probably trying to roll in demand with it, I guess.
So let me try this and see if this is helps.
Okay.
So for that kilowatt hour that's going to come out of that panel, that's one less kilowatt hour that we had to produce.
Right.
It was going to cost us, I'm using rough numbers, it was going to cost us, say, 3 cents to generate that. That would be our variable cost of generating that KWH.
Right.
We're setting aside all the fixed costs. So it would cost us 3 cents to generate it with our own stuff.
On average.
Right, on average. And retail rate, let's call it 7 cents.
Okay.
All right? So for y'all, that's 7 cents. So instead of the 3 cents it was going to cost us for that KWH, it cost us 7 cents for that KWH. And that is where this, we're paying too much for it idea comes from. Does that, I don't know if that gets at your question, Jeff.
It seems to me that something put in the peak hours is worth a lot more than something put in at midnight.
That's what I'm saying. They're only being compensated for the kilowatt hours, but no real, just like we pay for, significantly for what you consume during that peak hour, shouldn't they be paid for what they produce during that peak hour? Seems like that'd be the fair, accurate way to, because before that was baked into the kilowatt hour charge. We've just separated it, but that's what I kept thinking they would be entitled to, both the retail rate and their contribution or retraction from demand.
Gotcha. And you're right. In fact, one piece I left off is this program, the GPP program, come December 31st, will no longer exist. It is, after 19 years of service, we're phasing it out because there's better ways to do what we're doing. When this thing started, way back then, even the time of day rates weren't a big deal. It was a much simpler, is that the right word? Simpler rate schedule that this thing was designed around. It was an all-energy rate, and that's how it was designed around. Whatever comes out of this, I guarantee, whatever replaces this program will have some time of use aspect to it. It will have it will have the time of use, it will incorporate the demand either in the time of use or a separate demand charge, one way or the other, whatever the new program looks like. But you're right, given today, it's time to figure out a more advanced credit structure to match up with the more advanced rate structures that are out there.
And they're coming.
This is what we've got.
Sure. Yeah, they're coming. I mean, you will have to address that.
Absolutely.
There's no way around it anymore.
I have a question. What's the total annual revenue of this program?
I'd have to look that up. I'm not positive.
Of these 16 suppliers?
Of the 16, let's see if I can back into that. I know it's over the remaining period, I don't know, it's 120, I was trying to get to that, it's $120,000 difference in taking the 20-year deal versus not. So that, if you can turn that into
Hard to
some
figure
kind of
that.
range, yeah.
But you see, what I mean, it seems to me that we've already proven over and over that a kilowatt hour is not worth the same at different times of the day. So it seems like if you did anything, you'd want to price output from one of these projects to recognize that the reduction in demand is as much, if not more important than just a kilowatt hour. And it seems like
you're
we're
saying
going
you're
the wrong
addressing that, though,
direction.
that you're addressing that in the new rate structure after this year.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I would even go further than that to say, for these larger scale projects, for things greater than 50 kW that are out there even today, now they don't get paid 7 cents. They'd love to get paid 7 cents, but they don't. But they have a time of use rate in them. You know, it's just these smaller versions. You know, we're used to dealing in megawatts, and here we're talking about a few number of kW. So these smaller ones, we had a very simple program that kind of worked nicely for the time. And that's what everybody signed up under, and that's kind of where we find it.
You got the technology now, though, so it makes things, you can actually read that output based on that time, what day, what hour, you know, those, all the monitoring devices now can really let you drill down into that, what that actual cost is, and then that's how you got to determine what it is, yeah.
When this program started, a lot of the
Didn't have that.
homes didn't have
Yeah.
interval
You got
metering.
you got a meter reader.
He's got to, or TVA has to design a program that works for all 153 distributors. And one of the things that frustrates Ernie with us is that we're asking for something that makes perfect sense, but the distributor community doesn't have the capacity to do that. So it's kind of the least common denominator.
So
Will they
basically,
be, I'm sorry, will they be eligible for this new rate structure that's coming out next year that would have time? I mean, is that an option?
you're going to sign a contract this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 20-year contract.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know exactly what that program's gonna look like, but my gut tells me it won't be as nice as this. Because again, we're working our way toward avoided cost, and here we're still at retail cost.
7.5 cents is fair.
But we
Well,
also,
also,
between 10 and
the
15.
7.5 cents doesn't include asking them to rebate those large premiums that they got for the year, the first 5 years, whatever. So they're getting to keep that and sign a new 20-year, 7.5 cent deal. So it's really pretty, I mean, I don't know how you can get a whole lot better than that, other than going all the way to measuring the contribution per KW and paying them the demand thing, which
Right.
we've asked for, but I understand they can't design a system for Glasgow EPB. It's got to be for everybody.
Hey, the real attractive is the under 10 kW at 9 cents.
Yeah.
You daisy chain a bunch of those together, now you're making some money in that deal.
just gotta stay under the 10K.
You gotta stay under your own load, right? You gotta stay under your own load.
9.9.
Because anything you send back over your consumption, or does that matter? I mean, do you have,
Yeah, you
so
can-
sizing is still important,
You can't
right?
have a net.
Right, so to get the 9 cents, you gotta be under 10 KW output.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and you gotta be, your load's gotta be under 50 kW.
Okay.
But the question, I think, is can you generate more than your load?
Yeah.
And the way the new program, the way the program is that's not the way it's designed for.
So engineering is important then. Still gonna size about 80% of your load.
Work with us, we've got folks that are experts at this, we can bring them in with anybody that's interested and help them think about sizing and measure loads and do some things like that if you need us to.
Okay, great.
Is that what you do? You put in about 80% of your
About
load?
80% of your load.
So you don't ever
So
go.
never go over because you're just wasting money.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
So if y'all think that, you know, what we've tried to do here is give three options that folks can go with. The last two options is not anything that we've honestly offered for anybody else. If they asked us, we probably would do that for them too. But we hope that helps take care of
So,
this concern.
does your presentation tonight signify that TVA is ready to send them a letter and make them that offer? I mean, it wouldn't be from us. I mean, it's, that whole program is between you guys and they guys.
Right.
We're just,
Yeah, we're ready to do that.
Do you want the board to acquiesce to that?
I don't think we have to do
I
anything.
wouldn't think so.
It's up to y'all, but no, we don't necessarily need that.
Well, I mean,
We'll
so,
just make-
long and the short of it is if you were on a rate that where the field changed, right, kind of in the middle, and now we've got till December 31st of this year to make a decision. Either you sign on this, extend your PPA for another 20 years, you're going to get 7.5 or 9 cents based on your size, and if you don't do it, you lose it, and there's nothing you can do even if there is a new program comes along, because you're still going to be on the old system. Okay?
Right.
Got it.
Okay. Well, that's what
for the
we'll do.
remainder of your contract though, right? You're on the old system for the remainder.
For the remainder of your contract.
Or whatever that is. Right.
Unless you sign
Oh,
on
they're
this.
gonna sign on the new one.
Unless you sign today,
Unless you
and
sign
then
the
immediately go to the
No,
new
I'm talking
rate.
about the guys that
Right,
don't
he
do
was saying
anything.
it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they don't do anything, they're just right back where they were.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I don't, at this point, know why you wouldn't. You're gonna throw another $120,000 in your pocket over the next 20
Well,
years.
that's, yeah.
Y'all are while I've got the floor here a little bit, let me just say y'all are a very valued customer to TVA, and you've had a lot of folks digging into what we can do here. Like when we did the rate adjustments, there was folks that were very interested in trying to help in doing that. We plan to continue that for the future. As y'all see fit to call us in, please don't hesitate. We want to support, we want to help.
Now, Ernie, there's been some talk, over the several months about potentially, changing, distributors and going with somebody, besides TVA. What are the mechanisms for, how does that work? I know we're under an evergreen contract. We've got evergreen provisions in our contracts, a 5-year wrap-up period, is that correct? And
Yeah, so yeah, I didn't study up on this, but let me see.
and I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm sorry, but he didn't mean to, but he just did.
Right, I understand.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
So, right now, y'all are under a 5-year rolling term contract. So if you wanted to do something different, it's been done in the last 10 years. Paducah Power System, Princeton Electric Plant Board, under this same contract that y'all are under, gave notice. And so once you give notice, then that starts that 5-year clock ticking, and we'll continue to serve you all the power that you need for those next 5 years. Some of the programs that we offer, some of the economic development, some of the other things fall off the table at that point, but we'll serve you everything you need from a power standpoint for those 5 years. At the end of that 5 years, then we would open our switches. We serve y'all at 2 different delivery points, and we would open those switches. So now you've got 2 substations there that would need fed by somebody somehow. And whoever the third party would be would need to build into those substations and energize, or you build new substations or something to that effect. But that line that we've got, y'all are fed off a line that goes from Bowling Green Primary to Summer Shade, and we'd open those switches on that line, and then you'd find another power
So
supply.
they just have to build transmission into those substations then, yeah, okay. And then another thing, brings up another one, we're talking about these new contracts. Any of these people that have made substantial investments, let's say in generation projects, those contracts are gone because TVA no longer supplies power, so they're not going to be purchasing power, so it'd be up to them to either enter into another contract with the current, whoever that distributor would be, if they would, or
If they have a green power type
or
program.
if they had some type of program, yeah.
Right.
Or just abandon the
So
project.
that's the green power programs that we just talked about. You've got some industry that get some economic development credits. I'm looking at Melanie.
Large
You've
credits,
you've got some significant credits to some of your largest load industries from our economic development programs. They would fall off as well
Okay.
at the beginning of that.
Well, it's like I said, we're just, it's been discussed and, it
Sure.
seems to be a topic.
Understand.
I just want to make sure we know, kind of the fact pattern, at least
I just
have an
ask
idea.
that as you go down that path, as you go down that road, allow us to work with you on how that could work out, how we transition, what some value or some things that we've learned over the years as that's transitioned that might be useful.
Okay. Thank you, Arnie.
Thank you.
Any other?
Chairman, I don't think there's anything
Any other
else.
business before the board tonight? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? And we are adjourned.
Not near the audience here. That was the last
You were expecting more, weren't you?
Yeah, last time they were standing around the wall.